Welcome to our class this morning. Just hand them out, please. Yeah. It's really great to see you all here. And we have a special treat this morning in as much that it's being filmed. Now, initially it wasn't going to be, but all of a sudden it sort of happened. And so a friend of mine, Ralph, he's had experience with television, so he's really coming here to film it. And I do have it live streamed at the moment, so that's it. But it's great to see you all, and it just proves how interested everyone is in doing gluten-free cooking. Now, I've been I'll just back up a little bit. We do gluten-free cooking classes here in this hall monthly. We've been doing it for a while now, and so we just want to share with you because we thought we'll do a gluten-free one. And when we advertised it, we thought we'd just advertise it, and we just got all these people coming in. As I said, you look around and it's just amazing. So I'm really thrilled because there's a lot of work gone into it. I want to just thank you for coming and thank you for being here. Now we're going to have lunch afterwards, and you're going to try the breads and the samples that we try. So there's different ones, and some people say to me, it's too much bother for me to make bread and all that sort of thing. But I understand it's a lot of bother for me to make bread. So what I'm trying to develop is a way that you can make it that you don't have to do it every single day, but if you do it, it's very easy, or every single week. So what I'm going to start off with you, and I forgot to give out the recipe sheets right at the beginning, but they're being handed out now. I'm going to do some different breads this morning. First of all, I'm going to do a yeast loaf, which is made with it's gluten-free. Then I'm going to do a sourdough one, and and some sourdough flatbreads, which I'm going to give you the culture for, so you'll have the culture to go home and you'll be able to work it out nicely. But first of all, we're going to do the sourdough, the gluten-free one with yeast. Okay, so what am I using? What sort of flours am I going to use? I'm going to use all whole flours. I'm not going to use any of the refined flours, even if it was refined whatever. So I'm going to put into my bread, so that I'll read out the recipe, and this is the recipe just in case people who are for the cameras too. It's going to be on page 2. I'm sorry, I'm going to jump around on the recipe sheet for you. Okay, yes, there was, no, look, just check. Peter, there's a whole pages here. They've only got one sheet. There was one lot here, come here. Do you know how, because he's my husband. The other one can go back. We can take the other one back. Yeah, take the single one back. One never got stapled. Yeah, one never got stapled. Hopefully there's enough copies. That single one was for the kitchen, Peter. Peter, those single copies were for the kitchen, so they can lay them out. Okay, page 2. Can you see gluten-free bread with yeast? Now I'm going to read out the ingredients first. A cup of millet flour, a cup of tapioca flour, a cup of rice flour, a cup of buckwheat flour, a cup of besan flour, a half a cup of psyllium husks, 2 slightly heaped ground tablespoons of ground linseeds measured after grinding, 2 teaspoons of dry yeast, 2 teaspoons of Celtic sea salt, a tablespoon of liquid sweetener. Now that could be honey or maple syrup or whatever you wanted there. 2 cups of boiled water, 2 cups of cold water, and extra flour if needed. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm first of all going to start this one off. I'm going to add all the flour ingredients into my bowl first. So I've got a nice bowl here. I don't know if you people can see there. Okay, so I've got a nice bowl here. I'm going to add them, and I thought I would have liked to have all my flour, my canisters and all that out, but it's just too much to bring it all down here. So I've already measured out. I have 1 cup of sorghum flour. Now, when I measured them out, I made them sort of reasonably. They weren't brimful, but they weren't scant. Okay, so they're reasonably full. Yes? This one, the first one I'm putting in is sorghum. It's a little bit reddish. Okay, it doesn't matter what it is. Let's back up. Millet, tapioca, rice, buckwheat flour. Substitute what you want there. You go home and you haven't got besan flour. Well, put 2 cups of millet flour. You haven't got millet flour, put tapioca. Any gluten-free flour will work, even if you had 5 cups of millet flour, 5 cups of buckwheat flour, 5 cups of what? It's 5 cups of whatever flour you have. Got it? So I've got sorghum flour. I don't know if I had millet flour. I do have a grinder, so I grind up my own grains, so I have my flours fresh. And by the way, when you're buying your flour, the best place to keep them is in your freezer. Now, they do stay, like you still can get them out, and they don't freeze up into a block. You get them out, but they're frozen, and they will last much longer in your freezer. So I've got a spare freezer in my shed, and I know you not all will have that, but I do. And so I keep all my flours in the shed, in the freezer in the shed. So if I grind up some, I've got them there, but normally I actually grind up the grain and make my own flour. So first one is sorghum, 5 cups. Then I've got, this is tapioca. Then I've got, this is brown rice. I wrote on it because I can't remember all of these. Oops. Now I also got a kettle here. I want to put that on the boil. Okay. And this is besan flour. I recently watched a YouTube clip of how you make besan flour. I was amazed. I didn't know that you soaked it first. They soak it and then they dehydrate it to activate it. Yeah. And this one is buckwheat. I use loads of buckwheat in my cooking. So that's your flours. So there's 5 cups of flours in here. Then I'm going to do a 1/2 cup of psyllium in there, 1/2 cup of psyllium, and 2 slightly teaspoons. Now this is a 1/2 cup measure. Never forget one class I was doing. I measured and I've never seen a 3/4 cup measure, and I did the whole loaf of bread and someone else's measuring spoons. I was away from home, and I didn't realise it was a 3/4 cup measure, and I thought it was a cup, and the whole thing would just in front of everyone just was so. Didn't turn out properly. Okay, so I just I don't pack it in. Look, it's pretty giving. You don't have to be exact with it, like you have to measure it out to the exact gram or anything like that. Now, 2 tablespoons of linseed, slightly heaped. And that's all that goes in the top. And some yeast. 2 teaspoons of yeast. And I just use this this is just the Lowen's instant yeast from the supermarket. Now, when you get yeast like this, keep it in your freezer. It will stay viable much longer because it loses its rising potential and it goes flat. And if you don't know if your yeast is rising or not, just try it in a little cup of warm water, and just see if it's got any raising potential in that. Just make sure it rises. Because if it doesn't rise a tiny little bit in a cup, you don't want to put your yeast in there and realise that, oh, this yeast's flat. But it should last. Look, it lasts a couple of years, but keep it in the freezer all the time. Okay, so what I've done there, and I'm going to whisk all those flours through, because some of those flours are a little bit lumpy. In the meantime, on my kettle, I have a jug. And in my jug, to save time here, I actually put a spoon of honey, a tablespoon of honey. It's just in the bottom there. Now, I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of salt. Now, when you're using salt, we always use a salt that's like a Himalayan salt or a Celtic sea salt, one or the other. You need to not get away from that table salt that you get from the supermarket. That is so unhealthy. Okay, so you use a Himalayan or a Celtic. I actually did some research on it. I think Celtic is marginally better, but not much. Himalayan is nearly there too, so it doesn't worry me if you use either. Now I'm going to get a cup measure, and I've just boiled that, so I'm going to put 2 cups in here, and while it is boiling, I'm going to stir it to dissolve that honey that's in there and the sea salt. So I'm just going to stir that through. And then I'm going to add 2 cups of cold water to that. And this is my purified water. I use it all the time. So, not that you have to use purified water, but I'm going to add the 2 cups in there. Do you? Mixed herbs in your... Yes, very nice. Okay, now I'm just going to dump the whole lot in there and stir. The bowl is just not quite big enough. And I don't want to mess it all over the table because it's a black tablecloth. Remember one class, someone says, oh, that's never going to, with all the water in there, that's never going to work. I said, you just wait. You just wait and see. See, at this stage, this is the texture of it, see? But, and I'm going to stir it, and it doesn't really need to go into, some of those... You can knead them with a stirring, or some of you might have a Thermomix and that. It does. Sometimes you could, but, it doesn't make any difference if you don't.
Can you use a mixer?
Yes, you could, but look, I wouldn't bother. It's just as easy to do it, and it's nice to get your hand in there. You really need to make sure you whisk the flours through because some lumps do stay in your flours, especially besan flour. It's a lumpy flour. Chickpeas. So what they do is they soak you can do it both ways. You can actually put your chickpea in a grinder and it'll just come out as flour. But what they normally do is they actually soak them, and then they take them and they dehydrate the soaked one, and then they grind it. And that gets rid of a lot of the lectins that you've got in your flours. So it works really healthy. It's really healthy for you. But can you see how that's getting nice and thick? I have after cooking, I've dehydrated them after cooking. If you cook them and you have them cooked and then you totally dry them and then you coat them, you can get a beautiful snack, but they need to be cooked first. And you could even, mostly cook mine, but sometimes I will have canned chickpeas or any of the beans or any of the canned peas. You can have them on hand and you can use them as, like as a snack. And what you do is you salt the snack or, put some herbs on it. Some people like spices, so they put them on it. And what a great snack. And it's healthy. You know what you're putting in. But you need to have them cooked first. But they must be totally dry before you coat them with oil. Yes, they have to be cooked. Now, when you're cooking a chickpeas probably take a good hour, sometimes even 2 hours to cook. And they need to be cooked in salted water. If you start trying to cook your chickpeas without salt, your whole family, nobody will taste them. They taste terrible. They need to have salt in them. So when you're cooking them, so after they're cooked, then you have, then you can use them. We use them in lots of recipes. Now, what I've got here, I've got my bread tin. So I'm just got a bit of baking paper in there, and I just lay baking paper across like this. In there, I don't even do the ends, although you can put paper up the sides if you want to. And what I just do is I just do a little pastry brush with a bit of coconut oil, and I just put up the sides just to stop it from sticking, although I put a knife in there when I want to finish it and cut it out. Now, my gloves. Because this is a messy part. Are you? As long as you're not taking photos or something, although someone else is taking photos, aren't they? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this into my... No, I'm not. Just as well, I'm not... I've got to let this rise for 20 minutes. Okay, so we'll just leave that to the side. And I forgot my timer. Can somebody keep an eye on the time for 20 minutes? I'll put that over here. 20 minutes. Okay, so we'll have to go. I'll have to go on to the next one in a minute. So that's got to come. That's got to raise. I just spilled a bit of water there. This has to rise for make it 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. After 15 to 20 minutes in there, I will put it in my bread tin, and then I will pack it in, and then that will be allowed to rise probably another 5 minutes before it goes in the oven. Maybe 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes before. It needs to have springs still in it. Okay, so we're going to talk, and I'll show you some of the bread that I've done here. This is a loaf that I did this morning. Now, sometimes what happens, it does, it comes out beautiful, and after a little while, it tends to have a little bit of a dip in there occasionally. But that's this morning's bread, and this is exactly the same recipe as I just showed you there. That's the bread. That's another bread that I did this morning. I did 2 of them. Now, this one here is the same recipe that I did on Friday, but it's a half mixture. I did exactly half of the amount of the recipe. So what I decided to do, I was going to actually show you and cut it and let you see. This lasts great. This bread I will make. Now, in our home, all our kids have gone and we're just Peter and I at home. So I will make a loaf of bread like that, and it tends to, unless you're using it all, there's too much for you. So you need to, so sometimes I freeze it. It will last probably maybe 4 days outside the freezer, then I'll pop it in the freezer. Other than it gets, remember we do not have any preservatives in it. So you're going to lose it if you just leave it out on your bench for a week, because it'll get mouldy after a while or whatever. So you need to be aware of that when you're dealing with these sort of, anything like these is because we don't have preservatives in them. So I will show you this here. That is the texture of it. That is from Friday. Now that's 2 days old. Now I don't know if you know, or I guess you would know, if you're buying gluten-free bread, after it's a day old, it tastes like cardboard. This one doesn't. This is really nice, and you can have it. And it was not. I mean, it's not as soft as some of them, but it's still soft enough to enjoy. Now, what I often do personally, this is me, I often will pop mine in I've got a sandwich press which I use so constantly. And if I'm just, sometimes I'll have it like this, and I'll maybe have whatever spread I have. We have loads of spreads we use on our bread. We don't necessarily use no margarine or butter. Okay, that's out. And I'll talk to you about that later. But I just, in my sandwich press, I would sometimes occasionally I'll coat it with a tiny bit of coconut oil, but sometimes I don't do that. I would just even wet it, just with my wet hand, and I would just go like that, and then I'll put it in the sandwich press, and then I'll take it out, and it'll be just so soft. Gets very soft after you have it in the sandwich press. So that's just you can see the consistency of that. It's on the camera there. Oh, it's not very. You can't see it as clear as you'd have to watch it on a more that screen is a little bit washed out. But it is nice to eat. Very nice to eat. Yes. That was was one of these. You can buy one of these, but they're a smaller size. It's not quite half, it's probably just a bit over half this same size. I never brought the tin in, obviously it's that size, but it was risen in one of these thick bread tins. Yes?
Do you use half the amount of yeast?
Yes, I do. I used half the amount of everything. Half everything. I only put 1 teaspoon of yeast in this 1/2 a mixture. Now, I've recently got an air fryer, which I think is an advantage in some areas because, you don't have to light up your whole oven and use that. So I've been doing some of the things in the air fryer, and it definitely is quicker, but, everybody is... If you don't have an air fryer, you don't need to go out and buy one. This is all bread that you can make, and it's quite nicely that you can make it in the oven. So, any other questions in there? We're going to have, in a while I'm going to go through some other things with you. I'm going to do the sourdough bread mix, but before I do the gluten-free sourdough, I want to do a lentil bread, which I'm going to do. And this is something I'm just waiting for that to rise. But I'll just talk to you about the lentil bread. This is the lentil loaf that I made. That is made out of no flour whatsoever. That has in it lentils. And it's got seeds in there. And you'll have the taste of all these, and you'll find that the lentil one that you can have... So what I've done with the lentil one, and I'll go to that in a minute, got myself in a bit of a muddle because I've got to wait for one to rise and one not to. Just put these here. And these are these red lentils. That's my next recipe, which I'm going to do. So I'll come back to this one, and we'll put it in the loaf tin in a minute. But my lentils here, what I've done is I'll read the recipe to you first. Now let's go to find the recipe. On page 4. This is seeded lentil bread. 1 cup of red lentils soaked overnight in 2 cups of water. 1.5 cups of water, a teaspoon of Celtic sea salt, some psyllium, 40 grams, or a half a cup. I've worked it out. It's a half a cup of psyllium, a half a cup of flaxseed, then 2 to 3 tablespoons of each: sesame, paprika, chia, and sunflower. Now you could use a mix, or if you didn't have, let's say you haven't got pumpkin, just use anything. It is so forgiving. And what this makes up is 2 of these little mini bread pans. That's what I've made this in. This is made in a mini bread pan. Now these, don't think these are small, they're called mini, okay? Small ones, someone else told me. Yeah, this one's small. No, there's another one there's different sizes, but these are called mini.
Where did you get those?
I think I got them from the Essential Ingredient. I went down there and I think I had to get them because I couldn't buy them in some places. Yeah, so I didn't get it. Okay. So what I've done there, I have soaked these, a cup of lentils, in any amount of water. It doesn't matter how much water, but well cover them. You can either soak them overnight, or if you forget, you need to soak them. I haven't switched the power on, that's why. Okay, thank you, Ralph. Okay, you can soak them overnight. Now, if you forget to soak them overnight, if you do a 20-minute soak with boiling water, you can soak them you can come up, they'll still work the same. But if you're using cold water, you need to soak them overnight. But if you're using hot boiling water, you can do a 20-minute soak. Okay, so what I've done is I've soaked them overnight. Now this is incredible because there's only 4 ingredients in this. Red lentils, salt, psyllium and linseed. And if you'll get your water, is water an ingredient? I'm not sure. Okay, so you've got your red lentils. Now what I've done at home, I've already soaked mine. And what I do after you soak your red lentils, you have to wash them. So put them in a large bowl and get them just clean, okay? So put your soaked lentils in a big bowl, put your hands through it in the sink, and then strain it. Now, my favourite strainer for all these is one of these old Tupperware strainers, which I have had for how many years? Those of you who have had it, I would dare say for 50 years, literally 50 years. Okay, and it's still working well. Okay, so when you strain it and then you tip it into your blender and then you add the 1.5 cups of water. You see, they're already soaked when you put them in the blender. So you know that you don't need extra water. It's 1.5 cups of water, a teaspoon of salt, and then I blend that. Now that is what this mixture is. That is just blended, soaked red lentils and salt and water. That's all it is. Okay, I'm not going to make that up until what time have we got? Another, yes, it's coming up. Another 5 minutes. We'll just wait for it and then I'll pop it in and get it out of the way. I don't want to get myself too tangled up here. I've got that many things going. I was making some of the things this morning. I was up at 5 o'clock and I was making those 2 loaves of bread and all those mini lentil loaves. And I was getting myself in a tiz because you know what it's like when you've got to put salt in this and a salt in this. Did I put it in there or not, you know? I forgot to put it in this. No, but I was concentrating and I really thought to myself, I've got to concentrate. And I said to myself, now I've put salt in this. I had to tell myself, or I haven't done this. I had to. And then if you get sidetracked, and it's very, very distracting. Okay, so what I'm going to do in a minute is I'll put that in a bowl. I will just mix in my seeds, my mixture of seeds. And here they are in there. I've just got a mixture of seeds. And that will be my mix. And I need in there, I will need some psyllium and some chia and psyllium. That's all that goes in the loaf. Now, it's amazing. We use loads and loads of psyllium in this because we need to get it to bind. You know what it's like trying to make bread out of when you don't have proper wheat. Very difficult to get that elasticity so it sticks together, but this is great. This will do it. So we're going to do that. We're going to add that all together. I'll just get my other bowl. Here it is. And we'll mix them all up in a minute. I think that's nearly enough. It was a quarter of an hour. 50. You don't over-rise this. You know, sometimes people want to think, oh, I've got to let it rise for 30 minutes. It comes up quite quick because if I touch that, that's quite warm. That temperature, when I use 2 cups of boiling water to 2 cups of cold water, that came up, it's quite a warm mixture. So it really activates it well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this into my loaf tin. Just like you would with bread. And then you let it rise probably about at least another 5-10 minutes. And then you pop it in the oven for, 180 or 2, whatever it is. Can't remember. Doesn't matter. 180, 190 for an hour. Can you see how thick it is now? When you first start off, you think, oh, this is never going to thicken up, but it thickens up very quickly. All that psyllium and linseed just really add that binding power.
Hey, is that fan forced or just?
What's that? Yeah, look, I have a fan forced oven, but you've got to adjust it. Yeah. Now what I do here, this is where I put the gloves on. What I do next is press it in. I've got some water here for press it with my hand, like with a wet glove or a wet hand, and I press it down. And then that's it. Now what I just do is I usually get a few sesame seeds or something like that and just sprinkle over the top. You don't have to, but I just like to. It's just my little thing. And just pat those sesame seeds in. Okay, and that's it. I'm a bit... I don't want that out there. I want to keep that. Yes, please, Susan. Now, and that, and also...
Do you want to take the bread?
The bread too, tell them leave it out for about 5 minutes and then pop it in the oven for an hour.
Okay.
Thank you. Hopefully it'll be finished before you go, if everything goes well. Now we're back to our red lentil bread. Okay, so what you need to do is just shake this up because it does settle. So these are the soaked red lentils plus the salt and water. That's all that's in them. Then I'm going to add in there, now this is where you don't know how often I forget. How many? Half a cup of each. Because some of them you'll see I've got different amounts in. I get myself muddled up. So half a cup of brown linseeds. Now I bought these as golden linseeds and half of them were brown. Doesn't worry me. I don't think there's any difference nutritionally between the linseeds if they're golden or they're brown. I think they're exactly the same. It's just that sometimes it's nice to have golden seeds and sometimes it's nice to have brown. Okay, and the psyllium. Now, this is where I get my whisk out again. Now, what you can do is you can wait for that to thicken and you can make little bread rolls like this. You can make them, you just maybe a little scoop, an ice cream scoop, or even a small ice cream scoop, and you can pop them in. You can put them in your air fryer. They work wonders, and you can have them fresh. You've got air fryer. You can have maybe you can do only a few if you want to. You can do them in the oven. They do them both ways, but you need to let them they get quite stiff. That'll get stiff as it goes. So this is where you do your lentil rolls if you want them without seeds. If you want them with seeds, you put your seeds in now. And you just turn that, you stir that all around. And I'll let that sit for probably now. Sometimes you need to let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes. Now, I don't know if I'll have time to do that now, but it'll start thickening up in a minute. And then you can pop them in the tins. But if you want to, you can leave the seeds out and you can add dried fruits in there. That is the nicest bread out. I will make a couple of little mini fruit loaves, and I had some dried fruit that I wanted to use up because it was getting old. I thought, I've got to use this up. And I put it all in 2 little fruit tins, 2 little mini tins. They were the nicest ones. You know how you like a nice, soft, I don't know if you're gluten-free, but you miss that old, the fruit loaf. This is just as nice. It is so nice if it's fruit in it. So and it stays soft for a nice long time. Now, I've made it with the seeds and the fruit, or you could make it with just fruit and no seeds. I think I like it better with the fruit and the no seeds, but it doesn't matter. You could have either way. Doesn't really matter. I would use probably a good 1/2 to 1 cup in there, but I absolutely love it if you put dried figs cut up and walnuts. It is nice. Last time I did dried cranberries. Oh, that is nice too. As I said, I use mixed fruit because I had mixed fruit at home and I wanted to get rid of the mixed fruit, so I just used the mixed fruit. That worked beautifully too. So you can have all of those things. Doesn't matter. Yes? I actually didn't put that recipe in, okay, because I ran out of room. There's a pizza one there that you can mix in. There's a completely different recipe. So that's for another time. But you could put olives, you could put any of those in. And some of the mixture you could actually put salsa in through it. You could pick. We actually do a cheese because we're completely plant-based, okay? No dairy whatsoever. So what do you do for, and especially if you're used to cheeses, hardest thing to know what to substitute. Well, we do classes, how to do cheese. So if you're interested in those, because I've got a whole lot of recipes and I've done lots of cheeses. So they're real, but let's face it, they are plant-based cheese. And I don't know if you've bought plant-based cheese, you might like it, but I tell you what, it's not like dairy cheese. You've just got to get that mindset, but it can taste nice and it can be very nice. So, and you know, I don't miss it. I don't miss cheese, and not that I ate heaps of it, but I know some people miss their cheese. They love cheese. Well, I know cheese is so harmful for your health. I know it. Okay, so we go all plant-based. So what do? Well, we've got a thin cheese, we've got a runny one, we can drizzle over things, we've got a mixture we make with, just generally with seeds or nuts and water or whatever. We also do them, and we thicken them. Sometimes you can thicken them with agar, and what that happens is that it becomes sets like a firm block of cheese. Works really nice, so you can have them. So you can do lots of things with your plant-based cheeses. It's not like you have to have just the ordinary old, what do you substitute here? There's we got a lot of ones that you could have with the pate or soft cheese type of things. You can get those too. Okay, so here it is. Can you see how thick that is now? I think I'll put that in the tins. So much easier to pack them in with the gloves on. So I'm going to just put them straight into the little tins. I actually don't grease it, although this morning I thought to myself, I don't want to get caught. I actually just have a little brush, pastry brush with a little bit of coconut oil in, and I just go around the edges in it. They do come up a little bit when they're hot, but they sink down a touch when they get cold. But these stay so nice. Look, once you get into making these, I think that you'll think, oh, I love this. I make them often. You like them making them too? Yeah. Oh, we had a class once here before where I've shown some of the people how to make it. A few of you here, and they already have watching it.
Okay, I know ovens are different. I found when mine was dropping down a bit, going flat with it after it was cooked, if I left it in longer, it stayed.
Okay, so it's, yeah, you took it out too early, yeah.
So what would happen if you added yeast?
This doesn't. Look, somebody else said they actually, you know what, don't have to add yeast. I've got a sourdough culture that will rise, but you also could add kefir to it. I've heard the dip. Yeah, you could put yeast into it. I haven't done that, but I think you could experiment. See, the problem is when you try all these things, there's only so much you can eat yourself. If you have a huge family, you can get rid of a lot of the things there, but there's only Peter and I. Yeah, how do I get rid of it? Okay, so that's how see, there you are. I've just got that little. And I'm going to just put I'd either put poppy seeds or some sesame seeds on there. I actually poking out sunflower seed, there's pepitas. I always get my pepitas from the Just Foods or wherever. I buy mine straight from Ovens, the pepita place at Ovens. It's worthwhile getting there because it's the only organic place in Australia that sell pepitas. Yeah, Border Just Foods sell it, don't they? Yeah, from the Peppo's Farms, I think his name is, isn't it? Yeah. And they are so good for you. Do you know what? Every single one of you needs to get your men on pumpkin seeds. Men need more zinc than women. And get your men on pumpkin seeds and they won't have prostate problems when they're older. If they have prostate problems, they still need pumpkin seeds. That's the reason. Okay, lack of zinc. Yes, there's a lot. A Zesty health food shop, plus I think Alma Organics, there's a lot of places. Get them anywhere. I mean, as I said, I get mine from straight from the, because we often go out there, driving past there. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put these in my air fryer here, and I'm going to put it on a 160 for 20 minutes. Then when I take it, then I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to take them out of the tins and add an extra 10 minutes. So it's 160, so it's not very hot, for 20 minutes. Okay. And they come out beautifully. You don't have to think, and you don't have to try to, oh, I've forgotten about. Okay, so any questions on those? No, Susan's doing it.
In a normal oven, in the recipe you say use a normal size bread tin. So do they make like real?
I have never made them in a normal size bread tin, but you have, haven't you? It works fine, doesn't it?
Yeah, that recipe makes one of the slightly bigger tins.
That makes one of this sort of tin, one of that size tin.
Then it rises about.
Yeah, look, it rises even that will rise probably a small amount, of maybe a centimetre or so. It does puff up a bit. But especially the fruit loaf, watch it, keep it, eat it, don't leave it out too long outside your fridge because it can mould. Okay, be aware of that. It's not like be aware. One day I had mine out for a little bit long, and I thought, oh no, they've gone mouldy. Especially your bread rolls. Be careful of that. I've kept them in the fridge, and they've kept a little bit longer. But it's probably better to make smaller quantities, and so that you make them fresher. It freezes too. All of this freezes. This loaf here especially will freeze beautifully. I cut it up first and then I freeze it. But this freezes beautifully too. And so I cut it all up, nice, slice it up, and I've got a little container I can put it in the fridge so it's not, so it was working together. Okay. Bread rolls in the air fryer probably were 20 minutes. I wouldn't do a second time, yeah.
Oh, you did this twice?
I do mine 20 minutes and then I take them out of the tin and add an extra 10 minutes to it. Okay, that's in the instructions. This is the seeded lentil breads. Okay, you bake them for 100, this is in the air fryer, you bake them for 100, it's the third last line or something, fourth last line. Bake in your air fryer for 160 for 20 minutes, then remove your bread from tins, place back in the air fryer for another 10 minutes at 160. Remove from the air fryer and allow to fully cool on a cooling rack before slicing. If using an oven, place in a normal size bread tin, bake for 40 to 45 minutes, 180 until cooked in the middle. You need to be aware. Air fryers seem to have a different temperature. You need to watch for it. Okay, so next I'm going to do is I think I will do the... I'm going to do some... This is the culture. This is a sourdough cultured bread. So what I'm going to do... Now, when you go, before you go today, this is on the front page. We're going to go to this one. It says sourdough gluten-free bread mix. Establishing or building up your starter culture. Now, that's what you have to do first. When you go home today, I've got bags of these for everyone. What you have to do is, don't leave this in your fridge lying there for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, right? You need to feed it, right? It's a living organism. It needs feeding. What you need to do, look, it'll last a few days in the fridge, a week or so in the fridge. Somebody said they've had it longer than that, and I probably agree it would last longer, but please get onto it as fast as you can by feeding it and building it up. You can use to build it up to remember it's gluten-free. This actual culture was raised on a gluten-free culture. It's got no yeast in it whatsoever, no wheat in it whatsoever. So this is raised, and its favourite food is buckwheat flour or brown rice flour. Now mine that you're getting has been fed buckwheat flour ever since I've had it. I use buckwheat flour all the time in my... So you're going to get this. You have to build this up. You have to empty this in, and it says there how to do it. Empty this into a container. And, I mean, if you want to get a bit of water in there, but you have to wash it. You have to add about, it needs to build up. You need to get it into an amount that is, what did I do with it? Here it is. This is my starter culture that I'm going to get, that amount. So it's probably a good 2 cups. So you're not going to get, you have to build this up a little bit slowly. So first of all, when you get home, add this, with this, add about half a cup of water and a half a cup of buckwheat flour. And I've written there, you could use brown rice flour. And a half a teaspoon of organic raw sugar. The raw sugar is what it feeds on. It needs the sugar. It has to have it. So I use organic brown sugar. You could use molasses or something like that if you wanted to, but I've used organic brown sugar. Now, let that sit on your bench for probably a good 4 to 5 hours. Add an extra half a cup of water and a buckwheat flour on that, or a cup of water and a cup of water and a cup of buckwheat flour on that. Add that. Build it up with your teaspoon of raw sugar. Okay? So first you do half water, half buckwheat flour, half a teaspoon. In the same bowl, don't tip any out, add next, after 4 to 5 hours, add, or if you don't want to do it all one day, you can put it in the fridge overnight and bring it out and do it next day. That next day you will bring it out, or you'll do it afterwards, and you will add 1 cup of water, 1 cup of buckwheat flour, and 1 teaspoon of raw sugar. You whisk it well, and what happens is you get this. This is what you will get. That is then you let that sit out on your bench for 4 to 5 hours. That becomes in it. Yes, it actually will rise. Now this has risen and it flattens down again, but that's fine. It's done. It's rising. This becomes my starter culture. Now this is what I'm going to use. Once you've got this, you will always have a starter culture to do your bread with, right? You must retain half of that. And really, I'm not going to spend all the time reading that whole list out here. If anybody who's watching or watching this online and they think, oh, I need all the instructions. Well, look, I'll email them to you, right? But the first thing to build up your, under number 1, it says gluten-free starter culture or bread leaven. Okay, so what I'm going to do, actually, I'll do this. I'll do this again. My spoon here. This is what I've already built up. Now I'm going to make some flat bread out of this, but I need to keep half of it. So I'm going to just stir it because it separates, and especially if you use brown rice flour, it'll separate a lot. Doesn't always separate, but sometimes it does. Doesn't matter if it does. Now I'm going to tip about half of it in a bowl. The other half I'm going to keep and retain and use as my starter culture. Now I'm going to fix that up first. In there I'm going to put a teaspoon of organic sugar. I've got it here. Oh, here it is. This is my oh, left my teaspoon, must have gone out to the kitchen. Oh, here it is.
Honey as well. Like I've done sourdough before.
You probably could, but I always use this. I don't know 100% sure. I just use sugar. Okay, maybe not quite as teaspoon like that. Yeah. Okay, and a cup of water. You probably could. I've run out of water there. I'll need another bowl here. This is all filtered water. I'm quite particular to use filtered water in my cooking. Okay, so I'm using a cup of, that's what I didn't want to do, a cup in here. And a cup of buckwheat flour. Okay. Now I normally do this in a bowl and I'll put it in a clean. These are the nice clean. These round ones are the ones I use for my starter cultures. And I just whisk it well. I'll leave that. As I said, my bowl is a bit messy because I've dribbled it a bit here. That's why I use a clean bowl at home. But here I just haven't got the spare bowl. So that is my starter culture. And if you see it now, you will see there's even there's little bubbles in it. You can see where it's very active. And so that's going to rise. You'll allow it to rise about that much higher in that bowl there. You needed to leave it on your bench for probably about 4 to 5 hours, 4 hours. Then you keep it in the fridge. The fridge halts your rising of your culture. So pop that in the fridge after it's risen. And it rises slower in the cold weather. But if you have it a lot runnier, it seems to rise quicker. Now, I put the lid on, but this is not an airtight lid. This lid, if I put water in there and tipped it out, it would run out everywhere. But it's great. It's exactly what I need because while it's not airtight, it actually just keeps everything in nice, okay? So that's fine. That will breathe. It needs to breathe a little bit. So that's what I keep in the fridge. That is always there. Okay, so that's the one. Now, this is the one that I want to use and make some flatbread with. So this, and I've done this so often, I don't even measure it out. Most of the time, I just dump. Okay, but what I'm doing, I've got 2.5 cups of flour here. And this is the same mix in the blend that I did on that first one. I just got the same thing, a half of each one of those 5 flours. So in there's just 2.5 cups. You can use this batter, which I'm going to make flatbreads out, can be thicker or thinner. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to put in there some psyllium. And I just got to make sure, because I get muddled up going from one recipe to the other, to make sure I've got the right amount of psyllium. 2 slightly heaped tablespoons of psyllium husks, 2 slightly heaped tablespoons of ground linseeds, a teaspoon of sea salt, and some olive oil optional. So I'm going to put that in there. So in there, 2 slightly heaped tablespoons of ground. And when I have my linseeds, or if you're going to grind linseeds, always keep your ground linseeds in the freezer. Ground linseeds oxidize, and they are not at all. Linseeds are a very unstable molecule. The omega-3s in there. And some salt. Okay, I'm just going to mix that together. And I need my water in there. I haven't put that in yet, have I? Now in this, are you about 1.5 cups of water?
What flour did you use, sorry?
Buckwheat, brown rice, the same as I did in the earlier one. Buckwheat, brown rice, sorghum, whatever. I've made this many a times with just plain buckwheat, because that's my go-to flour often at home. But I make that with all of those. Now I've made this and I've had the batter very thin. I've put less flour in it, and I've put the batter thin, the batter thick. I have made this so often, I don't even have to think about it. Now this is going to be rather a thick batter. Remember, the psyllium's got to thicken up. And then I just keep this. And I've actually got a special container here for it, which I put it in. Oh, look, I didn't mix at the bottom there. Now, before you use it, that has to rise for 4 to 5 hours. Okay. I'll just put that here. This here. So it has to rise. But this one, I've already risen. I want to show you how it's done. Okay. I'll just leave this here. I don't think I need it again, but just in case. Oh, actually I do, Susan. I need that back washed, please. Okay, I've got a sandwich press here. And I'm going to sorry, I've got to put this on. Okay, I'm going to sandwich press that on. Now, I'll just let that warm up. Okay, so everybody got the got the idea. First of all, you've got to get the culture, and you can do them at the same time, but you have to have 2 bowls all the time. This is my mixture that I'm going to make into flat breads. The other mixture, the round one, is my normal culture that I'm going to use all the time, that I'm going to reuse next time to another and make another loaf of bread. That's my continual one. I'm going to always have that one on hand. Never run out of that one. Can you freeze it? Yes, you can freeze it, but don't freeze it too long. I tried to I found one the other day, and I thought I'm going to see if I can get it back to life after probably it was in the freezer 2020. And I thought, I'll get it back to life again. And guess what? I did. Okay, it was a slow process, but you must remember, if you've put it in the freezer, you've got to build it up a few times. It's very, very sleepy and nearly dead. It takes a lot of rising, a lot of sugar to get it back to going. Remember, it needs to be fed with flour, and it needs to be fed with sugar. That's its feed. And if you don't feed it, it won't rise. So what I'm going to do here, I've got the sandwich press on now, and what I'm going to do is and I do this so often. Just before I start, I'll just get this out. They say a woman is good, multitasking, isn't it? Okay, so can you see how they've rised nicely? I just run a knife around the edge. And I'm going to turn it upside down in there. Oh, and it did stick a bit. I've never had one stick ever before. Just because everyone's watching, I think.
I've got about 5 minutes for the Thermomix to be finished, so it's a while before we're ready.
Okay. Try to get it out. There it is. And that one stuck too. But it still will taste. Now I'm going to do 160 for 10 minutes now. And then it'll be finished. Okay, so back to our... I shouldn't have used a black table. I can't see it that much. I've got a black tablecloth and it's very messy here. But never mind. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a scoop like this. You can have bigger ones. You know, I usually don't use a scoop, but I just put my hand in there and you can make large ones, you can make large ones, like, you know, and you can roll them up. You can make small ones. You can make anything. You can make flat ones. You can make thin ones. If they're a bit, if they're a bit thick like this, what I do is I just press them down lightly like that. And then I'll cook them for probably about 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, usually 2 minutes. Then when I get them out, I will lay them on a cloth, a tea towel, and allow them dry. Because if you put them together and you stack them together, they will sweat and they will stick together. So you allow them to, you know, like if you made roti bread, you've got to allow it to cool down. So this is how we're going to do it. I'll just let that cook there. Susan, we could take this out too, thanks. If you can manage it. Thanks. Now these will puff up a little bit. They'll be quite nice. I don't want to open them too early. You know how tempted you are. And then Susan will take it out in the kitchen and the ladies will finish making them out there. Not quite done. A little bit more. Sorry, I didn't catch that. You refer to...
The thicker recipe and the thinner recipe, is that just...
The thicker... Look, I've done both. The thinner recipe comes out flatter, but it tends to be harder. You don't... This one stays a little bit more pliable. Many times I've put oats in it, olive oil in it. But, you know, I can't taste the difference whether it's in or not. So I just leave it out, so it's optional. Yeah, look, it doesn't make much difference. I think what I've done here, a little bit more, not quite brown enough, yeah. But they're like little flatbreads, and they're quite tasty. You can make them round. Many times I'll make them about that round. But can I tell you that I don't make a lot. I will make what I want for that meal. They tend to go like the typical sourdough, the gluten-free bread. It tends to go a little bit flat and hard after a while. If it does, and you've got a couple made up, you can refreshen them up and heat them through in your sandwich press again. I have never made these in the frying pan. I don't know if they'd work. I've never made these in the oven. This bread, actually the bread's just gone out. I've forgotten to show you a sourdough loaf. Susan, there's 2 smaller half loaves. There's mid loaves. Can you just bring me back, not the huge loaf or the mini loaves, the one loaf I've cut, there's another that I haven't cut. Can you bring that, please? That is sourdough. I rarely make this bread into sourdough because I find this is so much easier. It's fresher, it's quicker. I put this here, once it's risen, I put this, after it's risen, in the fridge. It stays in the fridge. It will stay in there for about up to 2 weeks. Honestly, it lasts. And every time I want a little bit of flatbread, look, I try to do it every week. I'm honest, I try to do it every week. But it does, there's times when it's gone over a week. And every time I want a flatbread, I will just go and get a bit out and put it on the sandwich press. That's done, it's rising. So thanks, yeah, that's it. Now that's a sourdough loaf. That's one. I'll cut that for you in a minute. But I'll just talk to you about this first. So every time you want a bit of bread, have it fresh. So here it is now. Can you see it's not flat? It's got a little bit, look, it's maybe not... It's not dead flat, that's it. It's got a little bit of leaven in it. I sometimes, and I don't know what I've done with them, but I sometimes have some old sticks that I use. It was the wooden part to a spatula that I just cut in half, and I use them. So when I come in the sandwich press, I press down, and I know exactly how hard to press it. Because sometimes when you come in and you press down on your sandwich press like that, you flatten it out too much. So I just have those sticks there. Okay, so that is ready to go out in a minute, Susan. Those can go out first, but they can go out first. You can come back for the toaster, thank you. This can stay here, it doesn't have to go out there. I'll slice through this here. See, that's the sourdough. Now, I see it's really hard to get that sourdough rise, and it's not really good in winter. Plus, I find I don't often get this to rise as well as I should, and I was in a hurry. It was Friday afternoon. I was in a hurry. It was nearly night time, and I thought, I've got to get it in the oven in the afternoon before it, and it was so slow rising because of the winter weather. You'll find it just rises beautifully in the summer. It's so quick, but in the winter it can just be, like I say 4 to 5 hours. I actually rose some of those other things and it was over 5 hours and it still wasn't risen enough. It's very difficult. You've got to just watch it and play. That's why I use this one so often. It's my go-to. This one is my go-to. My second go-to are those lentil breads. Then comes that large loaf. This is something I would rarely bother doing with making a loaf of bread because there's a lot of rigmarole in it. But if you wanted to do it, you can. Now, I saw someone, they made it. I think, Dawn, you made a cob loaf, didn't you? Another friend of mine, they made cob loaves. It was only small, wouldn't it be? Yeah. Okay.
Excuse me, which recipe is that?
This one is the same. This is the recipe in your sheets. There you are. Just watch it. It could be hot. It might be just as well. Oh, okay. Just watch it. It's hot.
Thanks, Doc.
Yes, that's the recipe in your sheets. Where's my paper? Over the page, sourdough left on the top of page 2, 1 cup of tapioca flour, half a cup of brown rice flour, half a cup of sorghum flour. It just says half brown rice. It should have flour there. I've missed the word flour. Okay, got it. Half a cup of sorghum flour, 2 teaspoons of sea salt, half a cup of psyllium husks, 20 grams of maple syrup, 300 filtered warm water, half to 3/4 of sourdough culture. I've let that rise. This is the mixture here.
Sorry, and the quantity, that's in a smaller tin, isn't it? It just
Yep.
says the red tin here, so that
Yep.
recipe would make that size.
No, that recipe would make that size, yes. That's that size tin, which is the half size tin. Okay, here is our... Yep. This one? Yeah, absolutely. There, those are the little mini ones. Now, these are the same ones that you can do to make your pizza dough with. There, wherever pizza dough is, page 4. With your pizza dough, you can see the instructions up there. You can use, it says buckwheat flour, you can use any flour. Some people find buckwheat flour a bit strong. I don't, okay? And I think to myself, I use it all the time, and it's just something but you've got to know, and you've got to go with it, whatever people like. So you've got a gluten-free pizza, and the girls out there are working on a gluten-free pizza out there. And so that's a base that you can have, but you don't have to have that. I have used that same flat bread that out here that I made. That's my pizza dough pizza. And sometimes I add a little bit more flour to it. If I need to, I put more flour in it. I don't always have exactly the right consistency for rolling it out. You'd get to know how thick to make it. how thin. You might want thick pizza base or a thin pizza base. You choose whatever you want to. You put your topping of your choice. Now, I've actually put down the cheese-like topping that we're going to use because we use raw cashews lots to blend up, and you blend it up into water, 3/4 a cup of raw cashews, a cup of water, a teaspoon of sea salt, 3/4 a teaspoon of garlic powder, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and a teaspoon of corn flour. Now, generally, while we've got the corn flour on there, it is actually, you could put it runny over a mix, but you know, it'll just run everywhere because it's like water. So if you thicken it on the stove, like thicken it into it's just like a sauce, and then you can drizzle that over your pizza where you want it, and it just won't run everywhere. Otherwise, it'll just run everywhere, and it'll run down the cracks, and it'll run everything. A lot of it will run off the pizza into the side. That top one, though, that can be without baking, it could go over the top of a lasagna or something like that. So you've got that. So that's there.
Instead of corn flour, would you use tapioca?
Yeah, you could. I use gluten-free corn flour. All my corn flour is gluten-free. I buy it, so I make sure that it's just fine. Okay, so, Susan, can you tell Bernice, baby, 5 minutes? Okay, the next one I'm going to do for you is I'm going to make you something that I came across. It's just well worth you knowing. You might want to do, and that's the lentil wraps on page 5. All is in this recipe. All that is in this recipe is lentils and water. Another one, lentils and water. Oh, look, here are my little spaces that I had. Yeah. So they're the little spaces. They've gone quite black from the heat of the pan, but they're wood. So I knew I didn't want anything metal or plastic or anything. Okay, so here is my flat bread mixture. Lentils and water. Now with this one, you could do it the same way as you did it the other way, but I washed them first and then I soaked them in the 2 cups of red lentils. I washed 1 cup of red lentils, soaked them in 2 cups of water. Now, you put salt in if you want to, depending on what you're using it, because these will actually wrap up as a pancake. And you can have them as a sweet or a savoury. Okay, so you need to work out. So I've put a little bit of salt in this, but once again, you wash the red lentils, add them to the 2 cups of water and leave stand 2 hours to soak. Then blend them up. I've blended that up in the water I've soaked them with because I washed them earlier. Remember, I like washing them. Okay, so I'm going to put them, and I found such great difficulty with this one. I thought, will I put it on in the program or not? Because at home I've got my favourite frying pan. And it works wonderful on my stove at home. And I'm trying to work that here in my electric frying pan, and it's not as good as I would have liked it been. Now, because it's a non-stick. I generally don't use non-stick. I generally don't use any Teflon pans, but I've got one Teflon pan that I use for these. But I thought, I'm going to try it in this. And last night I thought, I'll try it in this. And this is what I tried last night. And look, you know how you want to get them nice and round, but then look what happened then. You know, who cares? But that's them, okay? So what I'll do, I really need to get this up to temperature first to make sure it's hot. Because I found with this frying pan, and Bernice said, because she'll come out in a minute and do the next loaf of bread, and she says, but we've got a fry pan here, we've got a Teflon electric frying pan in here. And I said, you know what, when we did our class, our instructing certificate to get them, our instructor says, never use anything that you haven't tried before at home. because you don't want to get there. And how hot is a frying pan? Well, how hot this one is quite slow. And it took me so long. I burnt everything when I first got it until I know when I cook it, I only cook it on number 3. And I thought, no, well, I do it for this now. But I just want to coat it with a little bit of oil here because it definitely will stick. Oh. Okay, so what I do, and you need to shake it. I'm not going to do all of them, but you need to shake it and then just put a little... Now, what I do with it, I put them in a bowl and I've got a scoop, a soup ladle, and I work it out that way. Oh, that's bumped up. So it's cooking, and then you're tempted to want to turn it too early. And look at that, that shouldn't be smoking, but this is worthwhile. When I found these recipes, I thought, oh, this is great. Because, I wouldn't make all that up, the quantity for myself at home. I just make up a little bit and just have it in the fridge, have it ready to go, oh, I feel like a lentil wrap today. These were so nice. Here they come. But as I said, they go so nicely in my frying pan at home. Yeah, that frying pan's a bit hot. Now it's all right. I should have brought some of those nice ones in that this is how they should go. But that's what you get, see? Okay. So it doesn't take long to cook. And you can sort of roll your frying pan out at home and make them a bit thinner. They are probably a little bit thicker than I would have used because I was using this frying pan, not my favourite one. And I've used this just so easy, and it just goes in and over, and they work out so nicely. So there they are. But they stick a bit in this because it's non-stick. Now that's nylon or whatever it is. See? So they're not as good today as demonstrating, but they are worthwhile making if you've got your favourite frying pan. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so I'll just clear this up, and I'll get Susan, Bernice out here in a moment, and she's going to do our next thing. So I'll just work this here. Any questions while I'm cleaning up? Sorry, speak louder.
Where did you get that round thing that you...
that came from what? Kmart or supermarket or somewhere like that. I can't tell you. It's not like a special, but it's very handy for turning flat things like this. You just get in there and just do once and you get it. Yes? Yes? I haven't, but you could use that anywhere in here. Yes. Is it? There you go. See? See, that's so pliable. And I'll let them sit in there because I'm not going to take them out at the moment. That's right. Oh, beautiful. They're beautiful. I didn't realise how great they were to cook with. I've used lentils as a savoury in our meals, but not as for our food, like what we're doing now, like as a substitute for grain, I'm amazed how well it comes up.
I wonder whether you could use the brown lentils as well to do the same.
Somebody told me that they had, but I've never done it. You're welcome to come here. I just want to shift my stuff.
I'm just trying to.
No, here, I'll shift my stuff off here.
That's okay. I need maybe measuring cups and measuring spoons.
Yeah, okay.
You're organised, Kate. That's good. Oh, where's my friend Ralph? I need to turn this speaker on.
No, he will. He will.
Where is it? Is it just on here?
Yeah,
What do I do?
it's on.
I'm on?
Yes.
Oh, I better not say anything I shouldn't say then. Good morning. I think it's still morning, everyone. Lovely to see you all. What a day. I've got my staff out in the kitchen busily trying to get lunch ready, and we're working with recipes we're not 100% familiar with and wasn't sure if it was going to work and that. So I'm sort of in a bit of a frenzy, so I just need to breathe and relax and that. So today, like Kay has asked me to make the life-changing bread recipe. And have we got an extension lead, Kay? And I'm going to make it in my Thermomix. Now, I realise not everyone has got Thermomixes, but you can do it in a blender rather than a processor, isn't it? You can't really do this in a processor, it's a blender. Any of? Yeah.
Any food processor, you don't have to put it in a...
Okay.
Yeah, Thermomix is a bit...
Now, you can't see anything there. I'll put that there. Maybe that'll allow you to see in. Turn that on. Now, Nola, I saw Nola here. There. Nola gave me this recipe probably 10, or it came from you originally, probably 10 or 15 years ago, wouldn't it be, Kay? And the first time I made it, I just used the whole nuts and seeds and just made it according to the recipe. And it worked, it was nice. And then the next time I made it, I thought, I'm going to grind all the nuts and seeds up and get more like a flour to make it with, which I did, and that worked nice. And then when Kay was telling me what she was doing, I said, I'll do the life-changing bread if you like. That's an easy one. She said, oh, the recipe's changed. And so what we do with the recipe now, let me just find the recipe here. We take our, I need to read this. In a glass bowl, place your sunflower seeds, flax seeds, pepitas, which are pumpkin seeds, and almonds or hazelnuts, it says on the recipe here. And you cover them with pure water and you soak overnight. Well, I covered these with water yesterday morning before I left home, and they soaked all day. I rinsed them off last night, and I soaked them again last night, and I rinsed them off this morning. So that's my soaked grains. Now, why do you think we soak the grains? Does anyone understand? Activate them. People know about it, so I don't have to be an authority on it. I've got a little note here that I made for myself. So what does it mean to activate nuts and seeds? Activated nuts and seeds are those that have been soaked in water for a while, usually between 6 and 12 hours, and then dehydrated at a low temperature. Well, I haven't dehydrated these. This process mimics the natural germination process that occurs in nature, triggering enzymes and breaking down compounds like phytates and enzyme inhibitors. The result? The nuts and seeds are easier to digest, they're packed with nutrients, and have a delicious, crispy texture. I guess that's when you've dehydrated them. And the health benefits of activating nuts and seeds: it improves the nutrient profile of the nuts and seeds in several ways. It increases the nutrient availability, breaking down the phytates and enzyme inhibitors. Activated nuts and seeds become more easily absorbed by the digestive system with their bioavailability of the nutrients contained within. This means that you get more bang for your buck when it comes to nutritional value. And it boosts digestion. Soaking the nuts and seeds helps soften them, making them easier on our digestive systems. This can be especially beneficial for those with digestive issues or sensitive stomachs. And it reduces anti-nutrients. The phytates and enzyme inhibitors can bind to minerals, making them less available for our bodies to use. Activating nuts and seeds reduces the levels of these compounds, ensuring you get the most out of your food, and it enhances flavour and texture. The process of activating nuts and seeds not only improves their nutritional value, but it also gives them a deliciously crispy texture that is perfect for snacking or adding to meals. So that's just a little bit of information about activating your seeds and nuts. So what we're going to do now, I'm just looking to see. Some of you may know we're in the process of getting our kitchen renovated and everything has been packed away. And I just don't know where some stuff is. So we're really flying by the seat of our pants, so to speak. And yeah, I'm not totally prepared. So forgive me, I'm going to use my can't even remember the name of it, just to get all of this just emptied into your processor, like so. And then the oven's on ready for cooking, and we add 3/4 of a cup of warm water, which I've measured that out roughly. There. And a tablespoon of maple syrup or honey. And Kay, I think inside on the server is the bottle of rice bran oil, just on the serving counter on the shelf there. I put it in a safe place. So we need 1 tablespoon of maple syrup or honey. So we'll measure that out.
With the water, how much?
I used 3/4 of a cup of warm water.
This is 1.5.
No, three quarters. Read down the page.
Next one.
Yeah, no, that's the first recipe. I'm doing the second recipe. It was there, good. So we've got that, and then we need 3 tablespoons of rice bran oil or coconut oil. This is a light flavoured oil, that's why it's recommended. So we need 3 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3. Set that there. And we need our 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. Now, when I was making this up on Friday, I made up a sample so that I knew what I was doing. Because I ground up all the nuts and seeds for the other recipe I was doing, I just automatically put these in the bullet and ground them, but you don't need to grind them, you just use them whole. So that is 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. There. And then our rinsed seeds, I didn't put them in the order. You're meant to put them in the order that it says, and I haven't done that. I've put my wet stuff in first, but it should still work. And we need a teaspoon of salt. Let's grab the salt. Salt, like the Celtic sea salt or the Himalayan salt that we use, it's a healthier salt because it's got all the minerals in it. And I find that using salt, sometimes you use even a little bit more, it just brings out the flavour better. I would never do that with ordinary table salt, but with the healthy salts I will use more. And then whiz until the seeds are pulverised to the desired consistency. So I don't think I brought my cap for that. It's out in the kitchen. So I'm just going to set that on about 30 seconds. Hopefully that won't be too long. And I'm going to pulverise it. And this will make a noise, so just block your ears, please. I think that's enough. I've only done that for about 15 seconds. I'll just... Okay, can you see that there? Oh, there is a scraper here. I'll just take that down. Like, that's what we've got at the moment. It's like a porridge. Okay? And then we add our 4 tablespoons of psyllium husks. Psyllium husks, I mean, the nuts and seeds are full of fibre. The psyllium husks just add more fibre and helps give the bread the bulk. And then I'm using, I think this is millet flour, so a cup of millet flour. There. Pop all that back there. And then we'll pop the lid back on. And we just need to do that for a little bit longer. Scraping down the sides if necessary, so let's just turn that back on. Like this machine, it has a dough capability, and I tried using the dough setting for it, but I found it just didn't bring it together like it needed to. So now it needs a little bit longer there. Just scrape that down.
So are you using about speed 5?
Yeah, it's about that speed. I'll do this for maybe another 10 seconds. The flour just hadn't quite mixed in properly, so that. Yeah, that's speed 5 there. And it needs to be less. It needs to be less. I'll just scrape that down again. It's taking its time. Kay, is this about the consistency that you do it at?
Thick porridge, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like that to me is a bit thicker than
Yeah,
porridge, but
yeah,
is that about right?
Yeah, it should be
Yeah.
a bit thinner,
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter.
maybe a bit thinner than that, but you can add more water to it if you think it's too thin. Like I find with any grains, they all absorb moisture at different ratios, and you might use brown rice flour today, and the next batch you need to add more water to it because it's just not quite moist enough. And so then from there, we just put it into a baking tin. Now this size tin is the perfect size for this quantity. Now, I don't know if any of you know, but the lady that actually sold me my Thermomix 10 odd years ago, she came to do an in-home demonstration, and anyhow, she's getting the grist of paper and rolling up, and I just tore that. What are you throwing it away? Oh, no, not throwing it away. By scrunching it up, you can mould it into the shape of your tin that it's not in the way. And I'd never heard of that before, so I use it all the time now. So we just pop that in there like that. Pull the corners back like so. And then I've got to get that out of here without it going everywhere. Yeah, you don't even have to get your fingers dirty. But yeah, Kay said you can use whatever machine, whether it's a blender or a processor, it should work the same. And then I've got to get this in here. I do find the blade gets in the road a bit, but I'll just get it out as best I can. And let's go here. Oh, no. It's all right. You're not meant to turn it off like that, Kay, but that's okay. I accidentally turned the other one off because I pulled the wrong switch, but that's all right. Okay, that can go. Now, I'm usually a bit pedantic about getting every last bit out of the container, but I'm not going to worry today. And then you just press that down so that it's fitted into the corners nicely, and then you bake it for about an hour, I think. Yeah, for approximately 60 minutes. So I'll pop that in the oven and bake it. And I'll leave you with Kay. She's going to fill you in on some more information, and hopefully we'll have lunch ready for you. I'll just get all that there. And I'll take that and that with. You're finished with that now?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm finished with.
Okay.
I think I'm right. Thank you. Thanks, Bernice.
Take as long as you like. Take as long as you like. Pizza's going to be a while.
Okay.
I'm thinking about one.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Bernice. It's just so wonderful to have a fantastic team of helpers here. Now I'm going to talk to you about kefir. Before I do, I'm actually going to, I've got a PowerPoint presentation. It's a short presentation, which I'm just going to bring to you. Okay. Some of you, I'll just fill in a few things before we go on to the kefir, because this helps a lot to explain what I'm going to talk about. On the table over at the back, there is some newsletters, there is some books, there is some DVDs, there is anything that you can have. That's a free table over there. Over on this other table here, I have some books here, which you'll find, and we'll talk to you about. I still want to talk here a little bit more, but I'll just do this now while I'm talking. I've got a recipe book. This is my own recipe book. It's for sale here. And, I live locally. If you haven't got money with you, that's fine. You can always come to my place and pick it up. That's a $25. This one here is a health training manual, which does and talks on a lot more things. It teaches you about poulticing, about natural remedies. This is $30. This here is a book on the same sort of lifestyle that we're teaching here. This is a friend of mine. Her name was Karen Walters, who's just passed away earlier this year, but she got herself better from multiple sclerosis by following this diet. And she's written her book about it. This book's $30. And her husband's given me the right to sell her book so that the information in it is used by people who want to know. So that's her book there. So that's for sale. That's $30. Plus I've also, some of you might be familiar with Barbara O'Neill. Well, Barbara's a good friend of mine, and she's told me this book here. She's just got it out, Sustain Me, and they're quite expensive. They're $58. But you don't. If you buy it here, you don't have to pay postage. So that's one thing. And if you want them, as I said, if you haven't got the money with you today, you could pay direct debit. I've got my account numbers up there with Judy at the table. But if you haven't, just see me. You come to my place and pick it up from me. Okay. I'm just in Lavington. Okay, so this is why I've been doing newsletters for many, many years. I've run classes. Can you see that? Hardly, can you? But I've run classes in halls. These are the classes that I've run. I've done them in my own home. But now I'm going to talk to you about kefir. Kefir is a living culture that ferments in milk. Now, this is what it is. It's a culture, and it's fermenting. Just like the sourdough bread culture ferments in grains, this one ferments in milk. I've told you earlier we are purely plant-based, so we're not using cow's milk, and there is a problem. When you're not using cow's milk, it does not replicate these grains. As you can see on that left-hand side of the picture, this is the grains that you have normally got to make kefir with. I don't have that culture for you, but I have got something that works just the same, all right? What does it do for you? What is kefir? Some of you may know what it is. They are a complex symbiotic colony containing more than 35 bacteria plus yeast that are proven highly beneficial to humans. And we have over 400 species of friendly bacteria living in our intestine and certain bacteria to aid digestion. So what it is going to repopulate your intestinal flora. And so many people have problems with their intestinal flora. Okay, you look at what the health benefits that we have from it. It aids pH balance in the intestines. It balances the bacteria in the digestive tract. It helps normalize bowel bacteria, especially after antibiotic therapy. It improves digestion, enhances the immune system, and goes on and on. Contains beneficial yeasts which dominate, control and eliminate destructive pathogenic yeasts that reside in mucosal lining. It is a rich source of enzymes and other substances that activate the function of the digestive system, and contains minerals and essential acids. For example, tryptophan, it has a relaxing effect on the nervous system, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus and certain vitamins, including B12. Okay, more. It metabolizes lactose, therefore reduces lactose intolerance, reduces the likelihood of carcinogen buildup in the bowel system, and improves an overall well-being and increases absorption of nutrients from your food. May assist symptoms of irritable bowel. So what is the difference between yogurt and kefir? The yogurt we know is good for you, but the yogurt that you'd go to buy in your supermarket is not the yogurt that is the lactobacillus and all the strains of bacteria that are found in kefir. There are loads. There are 35 of them found in your kefir. If you're going to buy and you go and get a supplement of acidophilus and bifidus, that's only 2. We need all of them, and you get them naturally in your natural kefir. So your curd size is smaller than yogurt. Remember the curd size. They look like, for want of another, the little florets on the end of cauliflower. Sometimes they described like that. But this is what I used to do. I used to place my kefir in a jar with soy milk. Okay, this is how I would do it. Okay, I used to use this. I have found since then that original Vitasoy, which makes the nicest kefir, but I found since then it has gluten in it. Somehow or other, through the years of my using it, they've changed the ingredients, what's been in it, and I haven't checked the labels. And normally I'm a label reader, but all of a sudden it's got gluten in it. So we've got to think of other things. But you can add a spoon of maple syrup or honey to it. You don't have to, but you can. Now this is how I used to make it. Remember, it's got the kefir grains down the bottom of that jar. I actually put on a snap-off on link. This is one of those old half-size Vicola's jar that I was using. Okay, I used to have this. This is what I used to use. I loaned it to my son, and I told him this is not a permanent loan. Guess where it is? It's not, hasn't come back home. Okay. And that's what I used to use. I put this jar, because it fitted in that yogurt maker. It was the same size. I put it in there. It was just a gentle, warm heat. It needs heat to ferment. And it separates in, you can leave it for 12, 24 or 48 hours. It's a different ratio, right? Depends on how much kefir you have used, how much soy milk you've used, the weather, and it separates into curds and whey. And if you can see in there, they're sort of like curds and whey. How can you describe them? Just lumpy bits in there. Yeah, well, that's right. But they certainly separate, and they've got like liquidy, separates into you can see the difference in them. Now you don't have to, this is one that I left a little bit long. You don't have to leave it this long, but you just got to taste it to your likeness. Now the different amount of times that you leave it is what are different things it does to your body. Okay, if you leave it less, you can leave it longer, and you can leave it really long. But you don't want to leave it too long, you know. But please, 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 never, ever, ever use many metal utensils. So don't have a wire strainer. You need a plastic strainer, and that's why your favourite old Tupperware thing comes in handy, and I think it'll last forever. I think it'll last another 50 years. Okay, what I did was strain it like this. I pour it through. There's a bowl underneath that, and I would just get a spatula and sort of press it backwards and forwards, and eventually you would find that I would be left with my original kefir. Remember, if you are making this with cow's milk, your kefir grains will grow. if you make it with any nut milk, any coconut milk, any soy milk, it will not grow. It will hold its own, but it will not grow. So if you want kefir grains, there's two ways you can either do, or a few ways you can do it, but you've got to buy your own. Or you find somebody who has got them to give away. They are the ones that come from, because they're grown or they're cultured in cow's milk. But I cannot have that. I've only got a small amount because it just holds its own. Okay, so this is what I've put, and I've got 2 to 3 tablespoons to about a litre of milk. Always remember you've got to keep that centre, that main kefir, thank you, that main culture back, or the kefir granules back, but it's the consistency of a thick custard. But I have found a little device. Now this is where I make my kefir. This is my kefir maker now. The lid's over here. I make it in this shape because it fits in really nicely in there. Now inside of this, I have, and I'm careful not to use metal utensils. I've got a little, the tongs. I've got a little device in there. My kefir grains are in there. There's a little, that's a little disc thing that I bought online. And that's it there. That's sideways view. This is the top view. That's sideways. They've got little slits in there. So inside of this, it clips open and it clips together. I've got all my kefir grains. But I have a problem. You go online and you want to buy that. I paid $50 for that with the granules. And now you go online, you'll find they're $60. But this is what it does, because I never ever change that in there. All I do when I'm making a new batch, I just get my tongs out, put that into my next bowl, and then I pour a litre of soy milk on it. And then I leave it in here for about, you can leave it for different amount of times. It's nicer to the taste if it's about 12 hours, but many times I've left it to 24 hours. 24 hours makes it a little bit more tart. This one here is 12 hours, and it's a very nice, creamy type of consistency. And I've lost my spoon. Just like that, like I showed you. See, it needs to be stirred. It does, it needs to be stirred here, and that's a little bit lumpy because it has to be stirred, but that's the consistency of it. I just used one of those metal spatulas to stir it like this before we use it in the morning. Then, just like that, it's just like thick custard. Then, for breakfast, I have a scoop like this over my breakfast every day. My husband has one, and that's it. And that lasts probably however long it takes us to get through it. Maybe 4 days.
And you leave the disc with the grains?
I leave the disc in there with the grains inside the disc. And every day I'm doing that. And then when I want to make a new one, I always use a fresh bowl. I haven't got my fresh bowl here because I've run out of bowls. But I've got that disc in there, and that just sits in there all the time. Now, that's it, their picture on the screen. That is the place if you wanted to buy the kefir kits. But there is a cheaper way for you to do it. If you want to pay $50 or $60 and buy it, please do. Because somebody told me that they believed it was worth its weight. $60, yeah, it was worth it. $50, and I paid $50, and I never used the kefir granules because I had my own. So they come in a sachet. But a friend of mine, she says, this is what you do. You go into the $2 shop and you buy one of these little toy things here, which undoes and it's got a little kid's toy in it. It's only $2. You got to be a scientist to get this. How does it come apart, Ra? Hey? Which end? Ah, look, anyhow, it opens up, doesn't it? It opens up and there's a kid's toy in there. We'll discard the toy, wash it up, get it all nice, put your kefir grains in there, and that will work exactly the same, and it'll cost you $2. But there has been some holes drilled in the top and the bottom. You can put many holes in it if you want to. Okay, that works. You don't have to spend $60 on a little gadget, although it's worth it, but it's got the slits in it. As I said, it's like that. So, what sort of milk am I using? Look, you can get a lot now. This is organic. I think I got this from Coles, but this is, if you're going to use soy milk, you must use whole soybeans, organic. You know, people say, do we have soy? Don't we have soy? Do we have soy? Don't we have soy? If you're going to use soy that is not whole bean, it is dangerous as they say it is. Whole soybeans must be used. Now, I've made my own soy milk and it works, but it becomes very runny. Now, some of these milks may not be as thick as that one. Remember, I said the Vita Soy. Now they've got Vita Soy Protein Plus. Works well, and that's got no gluten in it. But it is very hard to find. It's just not on the shelves. So you've got to work out what you're going to use. Just have a bit of water, please. Okay, so use whatever grains that you want, soy milk that you want to use, that one, but always organic. That one, that's Vita Soy, and it's got no gluten in it. So be aware of it. Yes, I was going to come to that. If you want to make coconut milk, what I would do, how I would use, I would just use maybe 2 tins of coconut milk and just get your kefir granules in there and let them ferment. That's all you do. You can put a little bit of sweetener in. You could use honey, maple syrup, whatever sweetener you want. And sometimes it tastes nicer to have that bit of sweetener in it. You can also use nut milk. Now, how we usually make nut milk, the ratio is 1 cup of nuts to 4 cups of water. Then I would put it through, I've got a nut milk bag, which I put my thing through, all my mixture in there, and it comes out, and then you've got the pulp left. Now, if you want to have the pulp in it, and especially if you're making almonds, yes, it will be, you'll have those brown flecks from the skin, but that won't matter. If you want to strain them out, please strain them out, but if you don't, leave them in. That's fine. You can have whichever way you want it. But you could have nut milk as well. So if I was going to do nut milk, I would usually blend, when I'm blending my nuts, I would blend in a couple of dates too, maybe 3 or 4 dates, or 2-3 dates or whatever. And that will sweeten it up nicely. So then you have your mixture, which I showed you in the scoop here. That is the mixture, your normal kefir mixture that you are going to have over your breakfast. You can use that in smoothies. You can use that in so many things. You can use it in fruit smoothies. Like, it is so nice. And I mean, let's face it, if you've got a few berries and if you've got all those sort of things, you can use it in salad dressings. You can use it with your lemon juice and your salt. You can make it into a salad dressing. You also can make, with my trusty old strainer, you can put a straining cloth over it, put this through it, put a bowl underneath it, and collect, and you get your whey drain out of the bottom. So you get a very thick consistency here. Now you put that in another bowl, add some, maybe you would like to put in some dried onion flakes, you could use in some herbamere, you could use in some, I'm very fussy not to use all the bought stock cubes because they've all got problems with it. I could tell you, but I'm not going to go into that here. But none of them are safe to buy that I have seen. Even that Massel's, that is not. That's still got what we call excitotoxins in, which are harmful for our body. So I've got all those things. Yes? If you can, if you want to, but they don't have to be. Oh, excuse me, I've got a sneeze coming on. 7% what? Oh, look, you need to watch it. Some of your milks, your soy milks, they come out very runny. Or Aldi have an organic one that comes out very runny, but it doesn't matter. You've got all the properties in it. Don't let that stress you out because it'll be still as healthy for you as the one that's thick. So don't stress out. You just got to work up and evaluate whether you want the more expensive soy milk or the cheapest soy milk. Because the cheapest soy milk, if it's whole bean and organic, yes, will work and it will culture and it will say, but it may be runny, but don't stress out about it. So back to this, we were straining it and we were getting it's like a cottage cheese consistency. Now you can put through that, maybe you could put through that some roasted char-grilled red capsicums. You could put through some olives. You could put through some whatever. You can put a bit of lemon juice in it, bit of salt in it. You can make that very, very nice. So that is a nice spread that you can put on the top of bread, or you could have it as like a dip type of thing. Depends on the consistency. If you do this, do not throw away that whey that is drained out because that has got all the properties in that you need to use in something. Drink it if you have to, okay, but don't waste it because it's got all the probiotics. So whether you keep the whole thing together or you separate it and allow it to come apart, that doesn't matter. So the whole thing needs to be drained and drunk, the whole lot drunk. Okay, that's it there. That's the kefir one. Now, just before I go on, there is another way that I want to show you. This is, if you don't have and you don't want to go out to make one of these, this is what I do often when I go away on holidays. Okay, so we've got just an ordinary glass jar. If Peter and I go away for a weekend, I will put in the bottom of my glass jar and about that much, or maybe that's a bit much. Maybe not that much, but it doesn't matter. And then I will add soy milk on the top of that. Oh, wait a bit, I forgot to shake it up. And I will let that sit. I don't need to be in the fridge. I can take it away with me. I generally put it somewhere where I don't want the lid on hard. I leave the lid a little bit loose so it's getting a bit of air in. It likes a bit of air. And I'll sit that, and you sit that on your jar, on your cupboard overnight or your bench overnight. And I would do a little bit less in the winter. It maybe won't do it as much. That'll come back and it'll be yogurt the next day or kefir the next day, thickened. Okay, so that's an easy way to do it. Now, what I just showed you is what I'm going to give you. I'm not giving you the granules. I'm going to give you the mixed up mixture, the kefir. Let's call it custard for want of another word. This is little sample that you're going to get. It's only got a little bit in it, but that's enough. What I'd suggest what you do when you get home, take it out, or actually you could tip your milk in there to wash it out, about a half a cup of milk in there, and just put it in a glass jar, and that becomes your Kefir Culture. Yes. But remember, it may be runny. Some of my recipes I've used in my Green Health Manual. In my manual, I've got a few recipes. In that green manual down there, there's a lot of recipes. Oh, not a lot of recipes. There's a lot of pages. There's at least 2 or 3 pages on kefir, how to make kefir, and there is one recipe of how to make it with nut milk. And you can do it with coconut milk. You can do it with any milk, okay? But remember, this is milk kefir, but we haven't got the milk, so we can't. Remember, I won't go through all that again. So you're going to get this, but always remember to keep a little bit back. So if you were doing this and you're going away, you would always have a little bit of this left at home. So all you have to do, you don't have to do it always in this. You can use any of the the yogurt makers, but some yogurt maker, the one that you tip water around, has anybody got them? They don't seem to work as good as some of the others. I've done it we've got one of those I've forgotten what it's called, a pot, it's a warming pot that keeps your food warm for days, not days, a day. Okay, I've done it in there. It works wonders in there. It really does well. So you can do that. You can do all of these with that. It's one of the hardest classes to do is to teach kefir, because some people say, well, they can't grasp it all because it's not an easy subject to think. You've got to always have 2 containers, one that you're eating, but you've also got to keep a little bit back in reserve. What do I do with my recipe sheet? I just see anything that I've forgotten to tell you. Okay. How to store kefir. Always store it in the fridge, okay? Do you want to freeze it? Some people say that they freeze the grains too, and it's viable, but the longer you leave it, the more iffy it is to get them back to life again. Never use metal. Always keep it.
What's the reason behind that?
There's a chemical reaction. Okay, don't ask me exactly the chemical reaction, but it does. It doesn't like it, yeah. So you can use curds. If you want to use curds, use it by all means, but you will find Bernice has kept hers going for probably 10 years this way. She's never bought the curds. She just uses it like this all the time. So you don't need to buy the curds if you want it, but realise... But actually hidden in there are curds. You can't see them. They're just so fine they don't strain out. Remember, the curds are very small, so you've got them in there. But you'll be given one of these little samples before we finished. So, yeah, I think that's it. Down the bottom, I've got to make nut milk. You do your nuts, your filtered water. You can actually put a touch of linseed in it, which will thicken it a little bit. If you grind your linseed, you could grind chia. But can I tell you, when I was experimenting, I put too much chia in it. It just got very sort of slimy, But I mean, it's still edible, but, it was just thick. It had a gummy sort of taste to it. But it, in our house, we do a lot of guinea pig type of things. Okay, I've got such a mess here. I'll put that back on here. You know, this that I just did before is coming up very nicely. I just did that before. It's rising. All rises very... Oh. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is... Any questions about that before we go on to the next thing? Yes?
I don't understand about the grains, what you use.
Kefir grains are what they call, remember that picture I had up on the screen? They looked like, when I strained them through this strainer, there was a little lumpy bits. They're little lumpy bits. By the way, you can eat those little lumpy bits. They're not fine. Do you know, I remember somebody told me that they actually threw all the lumpy bits out because they thought that they were no good. And, you know, it was like everything they'd been told was wrong was back the front, you know. Yeah, no, the lumpy bits are what you need. If you've got milk kefir, you'll grow cow's milk kefir, you will grow those little kefir very quickly. And by the way, I know a number of people, and I've done it myself, you can use kefir as leavening in bread and it will raise it. You don't, you know, I don't go the other way round. I don't put kefir in, I don't do sourdough in the milk, but I've done the milk in that. I've actually had those grains, and I've actually put those grains, kefir grains, in some grape juice, and actually puts it puts a bubble in them. It becomes, they say it's poor man's champagne. You can get bubbly. It becomes bubbly. It's very, very nice to drink. So you could actually kefir a lot of things if you got quite ambitious. And I've seen, you go on the web and you find lots of people who are doing a lot of things with kefir grains. But while I do like doing things, I'm not quite as adventurous as that. So any other questions on the kefir before we finish? So, you know, when you go home, just put this in a glass jar with a little bit of soy milk. If you put cow's milk in there, you probably find it will work, but be careful, you cannot use long life milk, cow's milk. But you can use this as, if you class this as long life milk, it works. But not long life cow's milk. It does not work. Okay. Pardon? Well, it can be nut, could be soy, it could be, you could use any of your alternative packets of milk that you can go into the supermarket to find. You can use any of them and they will be all fine, except just watch it, that you need to find out if you want a savoury sort of thing, don't put almond milk with vanilla in. Once I did it, I made some cheese and I put vanilla almond milk in it. And it wasn't as tasty as it should have been, okay? Just make sure when you're using your milks that you've got to get the ones appropriate to the recipe that you're using.
Can you use a lactose-free?
Yes. Yeah, look, yeah, I think it would work. Yeah. As I said, we're completely dairy-free, so we just use this, and it works well. Now, remember, if you take it home, and when you get it in the sample, I haven't sealed any of the bags because they like to breathe. And I mean, they're all right if you're a day or so like that. But if you have them days without breathing, they like air, all right?
How much water would you add to it?
Milk.
How much water? Milk?
Probably a half a cup to that, 3/4 of a cup to that. I just put my cow's milk. I would put my soy milk in there or almond milk in there and just flush it out and then tip it into a glass jar like I've done here. Just like that.
And then leave it on the bench.
Leave it on the bench. That becomes your culture. You can make that into a larger amount like I have, or you can have it continually just replenishing it on your jar like this all the time. You don't need to go and buy all separate special equipment. If you just got a glass jar, I've just got a glass jar and a screw top. I've got this as a screw top plastic lid. Always just top it up. You never ever allow it to run out at the bottom. You always just top it up. If you allow it to run out at the bottom, it's finished. So just top it up, then top it up, then top it up. As I said, this is an ideal way when we go away travelling. I just take a jar of that. Now that's usually enough for 2 meals for 2 of us, but I empty it all out because I know I've got my reserve back home, so I don't need to worry about keeping a little bit back when I travel. But that's ideal.
So if you turn it into yogurt the next day,
Yeah.
could you put flavouring?
Yeah, you could, the next day you can add all your bits and pieces to it. Okay, you don't do all that on the first day.
Like I'm not going to be able to do that because I've got somewhere else to go this afternoon.
Yep.
So when I get home, can I just put it in the fridge?
Just put this in the fridge straight away when you get home. Keeping it in the fridge retards growth, right? The same with your bread sourdough culture. Refrigeration retards the growth. The same with your kefir. Now, what happens when you want to go away and you're going away for 6 weeks and you think, what am I going to do with my kefir? Okay, do you know what? You just make both the kefir and the sourdough. The sourdough, you make a very thick mixture using a lot of flour, and you just straight away put it in the fridge. You do not allow it to let it rise on the bench, and it will stay in there. It'll have just a slow rise in the fridge over a long, long time. And, you could get away with it for 2 months, 3 months in the fridge. The same with your kefir. If you wanted to do the same, don't put it out and allow it to do that 12-hour rise or 24 hours. The moment if you're going away, refresh it with fresh milk over it, pop it straight in the fridge. But bearing in mind, when you come back, you might need to culture it again. There has been times when I have had to, that culture, that little disc that I had in mine, I've had it probably for 15 years, and I've only once ever had to rinse the grains off. Now, if you go and you start making it, and if you've got the grains and you go and start making it and you smell it and you think, that's odd. There is a culture smell. That's a different smell than bad smell. Bad smell, and you think, oh, this is off. So what you do is you go and you rinse your grains gently under filtered water, never fluoridated water, got it? Filtered water, and they will come back and you'll put it back in there, and that's fine. I just recently did that with someone who had somehow or other got her grains very smelly, and I just put it through a strainer, like this, pop them in there under the water, just letting them, and then pop them back into she had one of these little things, and I popped them straight back into there, and she was fine. So just remember, there are times, that's probably the only time it can get a little bit smelly. Okay, before I know they're just a little bit behind because there's a lot out there in the kitchen to do. Yeah. So I'll just want to go back, and I'll just spend a little bit time telling you about our health programs here, and we'll talk about that when we come. Now, what do we teach here? We have health classes here generally twice a month. One Tuesday morning from 10 till 12, and we usually give you a lunch after it, vegan vegetarian lunch. And by the way, the most important thing I think I've forgotten to tell you, this whole session is sponsored by ADRA Op Shop over the car park. So please support ADRA Op Shop. It's costing them quite a bit to put this on, because we just put our account into them for the food we've bought, and they are just so helpful because they do community health programs, and they want to sponsor people who are doing what we are doing for community. So, works well. And so they have actually been sponsoring us the whole year, because I've done these programs for years, and I've always had something up the back for people to put their donations in, or someone is charging as they come in, because you You've got a lot of people coming through. But at this stage, ADRA coming good. So please think of these meetings. Okay, there are 2 meetings, and we teach what we call the New Start principles. And these are all in the books you'll find up there, both by myself and by Karen, who the one with multiple sclerosis, and by Barbara O'Neill. Barbara O'Neill is teaching exactly the same program that we are teaching. Exactly. Okay. We have 8 principles: nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust in God. These we call 8 health laws. And we need to watch what we eat. What nutrition are we taking in? And I'll talk about that in a minute. Do we have protein? What sort of protein are we taking in? Well, we need to be aware of that. What sort of carbohydrates and minerals and all those things? Are we getting exercise? Do we drink enough water? Are we drinking 2 litres of water a day? That's pretty much what we should be drinking. And if you don't balance all of these health laws, your health will suffer. Sunshine. Are you getting sunshine? Well, there's not much sunshine around now, is there? But doesn't it make you feel nice when it's a nice sunshiny day to go outside? Temperance. What do we need to do? What foods should we eat or should we not eat? So in these classes we go through and we teach you what you shouldn't be eating and what is not good for you. Breathing fresh air. And you know something which we're learning, we teach, make sure you're breathing through your nose, not your mouth. So much of our health is caused from breathing through our mouth. Especially if you're sleeping at night with your mouth open, you're going to have health problems. So you've got to learn to keep your mouth shut at night. Well, that's a class. Now that sounds good, doesn't it? Those of you who are married, your husbands would like that, wouldn't they? But we teach how to tape up your mouth, keep your mouth shut at night, because it causes so many health problems to sleep with your mouth open. You know, for little children, if they sleep with their mouth open, they will grow and all their whole oral cavity will all be wrongly developed and they will have to get braces. If you have kids and they keep their mouth shut at night, they will grow up and their teeth will naturally form and they will be nice and straight. Who's telling us? There's an odd few people. Most people from overseas in those cultures, like, you know, in the European cultures, they know these things. In South American cultures, they know these things. You know, but we in Western countries, we've lost all this knowledge. Okay, rest. We need to get good quality rest. We need to get to sleep at night properly. And, you know, when do we go to sleep? Well, we talk about these in our classes. And the last one, trust in God, that binds the whole lot together. Because you know something? God is the healer. And we can do all these things that we are doing and teaching, unless he puts his healing principle in us, we're going to be sick. And there are so many times, so many people are a little bit iffy about, you know, they have 7 laws of health, but they need to have the 8th law of health, because that's the critical thing that binds the whole lot together. It's the trust in God. Because you can have your mindset wrong and you can have forgiveness and irritation and annoyance to somebody. Well, guess what? That's going to impact your health. I know some people, and I've known different people who've said that you have bitterness in your heart against something, an annoyance or an irritation or something against the heart. Guess what? That's going to release chemicals in your body that's going to affect your health. Your health is going to break down, all because you've held on to bitterness. You've got to let bitterness go. You've got to learn to forgive. Okay, so we teach a whole food plant-based diet. Now, this is the iffy part, because most people agree, yes, you know, we'll have proper carbohydrate, we'll have all these other things and fats, but it's the protein. What protein do we teach? Well, we believe in a vegetable protein, not plant protein. Now, I don't know if anybody here has heard about the China study, but Dr. Colin Campbell wrote a book called The China Study, and it's well worth getting. I just love it, and it's got so much research in it. I actually did a course of his online. he's finished now, he's an older man now, but he's put a course online through Cornell University in America, and I did his course and I learned so much from it. But he actually he was set the task, and remember he's retired now, this is going back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, up to 2000-ish, that type of time frame. He was set the task by the American government. Now he was one of the top cancer researchers in the world in America. He was set the task to find out what caused cancer. Well, he found out what caused cancer, but they would not publish his research. So he put it out in the book called The China Study. And he knows it's animal protein causes cancer. He had his laboratory and he had millions of dollars, and he replicated these studies over and over again from other laboratories to make sure that they were factual, because he could not put this out and people would say, well, you know, you're not telling us the truth. This is not so. He had to be so, he had to have so much there that nobody could contradict him whatsoever. In his laboratory rats, he had two groups. This group he fed 20% he fed this group 20% animal protein, and this group 5% animal protein. Now this is all animal protein. This is actually using cow's milk. These rats or mice, both, he used both, he fed 20% protein to, casein, these 5%. Every single one of these developed cancer, none of these developed cancer. He switched their feeding, every single one of these switched off their cancer cells and these switched them on. He changed it again. They switched on, they switched off. He was able to manipulate up and down by just the feeding ratio of the amount of protein that he gave the rats, and he was able to switch on and off cancer. Okay, that was initially on rats and mice. So he decided to take his findings to people. He took it to the China people because they are all ethnically, culturally, but ethnically like they are the same. So he found the same, he replicated the study in China, and I'm not going through it now, but he proved exactly the same thing. Animal protein causes cancer. And by the way, he also said, and he's made a statement, he said, cow's milk is the most carcinogenic thing there is on the planet. He says, and nobody's telling anyone. And that's why he was stopped. When he found all these things, they would not publish him because the dairy industry is too big in America, everywhere in the world. So just remember, buy the book, The China Study, and it will open your eyes. That's why we are teaching what we are teaching. Some of these classes, I'm going to tell you some of the classes. We've also had a class, and I see some of the ladies here. There's a few here who've been to some of these last classes, and they've been through. We talked about the fungal disease link. How many times? How fungus is implicated in so many of the things, so many of the diseases, and we don't realise it. How do we minimise fungus? I don't think we can ever eliminate it, but we can minimise it. And there are some natural things we can do. We talked about some of the things that added to food. I touched on that in the additives. Excitotoxins, the taste that kills. This is based on a book by Dr. Russell Blaylock from America, who once again found that it's exciting. He was a neurosurgeon, and he found, why is everybody all these incredible, so many people were coming down with brain cancer. He couldn't work out why. It's what they're putting in our food. It's these additives to our food. They're hidden. They're called excitotoxins, and they are called natural flavours. But they are, you go through, you've got 621, 623. 621 is MSG. MSG is a very, very strong excitotoxin. But did you know that 635 is 15 times stronger than MSG. And where do you find these things? A lot of these packet takeaway things. You look at everywhere, you look, natural flavourings, yeast colours, yeast flavours, all these, they're everywhere. That's why we like to go back to the basics. You go back to the basics, your health will improve. It's these little things. Now, excitotoxins actually make you obese. They actually feed excitotoxins to laboratory rats when they want to fat them up. Now, you look at around in the world today, we have an obesity epidemic. Why? And it's these things that's why you can't lose weight. If you are having, it's your Vegemites, your Promites, your Marmites, it's your yeast flake, they're in yeast flakes. We do use yeast flakes somewhere. They're less. But they're in some of these other things, because yeast, they're in so many things. So many things. And they're often disguised as natural flavourings. They will hide them because they will put them on a packet of, you'll buy a bottle, oh, this is a nice one, this has got, no added MSG. But you look on the back and it says natural flavourings. The moment I see natural flavourings and they don't say what they are, I know it's got excitotoxins in them. Because I've learned from Russell Blaylock, says there are over 70 known excitotoxins. So MSG is just one of them. And you can have a sweet one and you can have a savoury one. Your sweet one is your aspartame. Deadly to you. Do not whatsoever take aspartame or any of the brand names of aspartame. Sorry, I don't hear.
Even some organic products?
Yeah, look, many of the organic products, you got to watch what's in them. You've got to be a label reader. Yeah, so you need to be aware of it. Yeah, 621 and 627 also is another one. One of the worst foods out are 2-minute noodles and those sort of flavour things. 2-minute noodles are the most deadliest things to your health that you can possibly put in your mouth. And I know that some of you would be, and your families love them, and I do admit you develop a taste for them. This taste has been specially designed to get you to come back and buy more. Because excitotoxins, when they actually, your food, they add them to your food because they make everything taste scrumptious. It tastes everything. I can still remember back when my dad, I wasn't that old, but I can remember back when we bought our first can of fruit, peaches, can. And I can remember my dad putting it back. I was a little kid, but I can remember him says, oh, they taste tinny. Do you remember that? Okay, that's my sister. Okay, but it tastes tinny. And I just thought, yeah, nowadays they don't taste tinny. Why? What they're doing? They're doing other things to it to make it taste better. And I'm not saying they put excitotoxins in fruit, because they put sugar in it. That's another problem. Look, everything. The gut-brain connection, we talk about that. That's another one. Altered foods. We've done a whole section on modern wheat, why so many people are gluten intolerant. Genetically modified foods. Are they harmful or safe? They are so harmful to our health. So I'd make sure when you buy your soy, make sure you get organic or non-GMO free. You need to be careful. And foods, so much of our food has got glyphosate on it. Roundup. So harmful for us, causes us so many problems. We also go through, you need to understand and realise what about diabetes? It's absurd, your diabetes. This was last week. We had this one, electrosmog. Okay, we talked about electrosmog. We talked about where do you get your radiation from? From your mobile phones? Yes. And I've got one of those little meters and I showed you, okay, it's even in your PowerPoints. You've got to watch where you put your bed at night. It's in everything. So these all affect us. They can affect us incredibly. Your mobile phones, all this stuff are in here, your lights, all of that. How do you try to mitigate some of the effects on your body? Well, we've gone through this, and I'll talk about where you can get the record of that in a minute. Then this one happens to be my most favourite one that I present to you. Some of you came to these a couple of years ago. I have got what we call Natural Remedies Part 1 and Natural Remedies Part 2. These are my favourite programs that I teach. That tells you how you can use simple home remedies. Some of the simple home remedy is using a poultice, which is just like onion, and we can use cabbage, and we can use potato, and we can use... What do you do with these things? Well, you can put them on different parts of your body and they'll actually pull out toxins through your skin, and they actually work. We show you how to use castor oil, how to detox your liver. We've gone through programs like this, and we'll cycle through them again, because even though some of you people been here, that lady up the end, she's been here for 20 plus years she's been coming. And you cycle through them all and you go through them, and she keeps coming back all the time for more. Same with you too. I saw one of those photos, Margaret, up there in the 1920s. You were in it. Yeah, you were in one of those photos all those years back. Okay, so you keep coming back. That's great. Yeah, so all of these things that you can actually help people by just teaching them natural remedies. Carrot poultices. Well, I could tell you so many people, legs have been... One lady had her leg ulcer. How do we help? One of my friends did some poultices and she got rid of a leg ulcer. So many others. Spider bites, you name it. We've got so many things. So many things that we can help. Arthritis, how we can do different poultices. And you'll find all these are listed in my book. Barbara's got quite a lot of them too, because a lot of these originally is what Barbara taught us. We learned it together all those years ago, right back in the... Yeah, but it's things that have been hidden, and we've dug in the same books and we've gone through. So that is simple natural remedies, and it teaches you. Charcoal. Everyone needs charcoal in their house, because charcoal takes away... And if you're poisoned, if you had an upset stomach, if you're food poisoning, charcoal just gets rid of it just like that. And they work. I have seen it so often. So you can use these remedies inside your body, and you can put them outside your body and wrap them in bandages all over the place, Okay, that's simple remedies. I can't go too much into them. Then there is hydrotherapy. And if you see that second picture down there, guess who's on the seat? Oh, you can't see it. It's switched off, is it? Sorry. What's happened?
Your computer has died. The connection.
Mine hasn't.
You've done something, Kay. I don't know if it's this. I don't know why it's been off for a while.
Yeah, now it's on. Yeah, good. I must have bumped it. Sorry about that, folk. We need everyone needs a Ralph, I can tell you that. And a Peter, yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, without my Peter, I wouldn't be able to exist and do this sort of stuff, because he's the washer-upper at home. Even though we've got a dishwasher, he just likes to wash up. And there's a lot of things you can't put in a dishwasher. Okay, but see that second picture down there? You mightn't just see, there's a lady who's getting her shoulders treated. That happens to be this lady over here, all those years ago. Hydrotherapy. What is hydrotherapy? They're water treatments. Do you know how to apply water for reducing pain, inflammation? Do you know how to get rid of a migraine using water? Do you know how to do fermentation? So I have so many people come to my home and I do a treatment on their back, lower back pain. You can just take it away like that. I'm not saying every single person is cured instantaneously, but it relieves them. My brother had a protruding disc on his back, and you got to do a series of treatments. And 2.5 days later, he says, "Oh, that feels so much better." And he could barely walk before he did it. So these are the treatments you can use water treatments on. You can use And then you can do the whole thing in the bath, all that sort of thing, plunging, cold plunging, hot and cold showers. Look, there are so many things. There are so many things, I can't think of them all at once, but you will find that you can bring an incredible... So I'm going to teach all these. I still teach these in the class here. Then I have another class on herbs. What herbs should you be eating? How should you add them to your diet? Because, I believe we're in the time where all of you folk, and I look out there, you're mostly ladies, you've got homes, you've got families, you're going to be the linchpin to how to help your family when we don't have... What happens if the medical system fails? Which this is my personal belief, I have a concern that it could very easily fail. Okay, so what's happening? This is what we need to know what we can use from our gardens and from the wild to actually keep your health back in order. What to use? What do you do to cleanse your blood? What do you do for arthritis? What do you do for diabetes? What herbs do you take for this? You need to know. So we go through them here. How to make a green drink by picking all your bits and pieces out of your garden and just drinking the juice. Plus, there's a very thing. We teach you how you can balance your blood sugar. Now, I actually initially thought that this was going to be a diabetes talk, and I'm just put a smidgen of diabetes in here because really not too much in there. You need to have your blood sugar balanced. How do you balance your blood sugar? Well, you eat it by watching what you eat for your breakfast, having a good quality breakfast. Chia porridge with coconut and berries, or you could have something like you could have millet cooked. We could have if you like porridge is fine. Millet cooked. You could have all of these really, really healthy, and then you have some seeds and nuts over it, and that holds you till lunch. Then you have a nice quality. This is a vegetable and lentil soup, which looks very nice to me. And then if you're eating an evening meal, you have just something very light, not too much. We teach how to avoid your stimulants. They're the things that are going to bring your health down, like your Coca-Cola, all your bits and pieces. And I was just sharing with a woman who came to me and asked me, and she said there was a few things she wanted to do. She wanted to lose weight. She also wanted arthritis. And so I told her to write out what she was eating. And she actually had to put a food diary out. And the moment she put a food diary out, she said, I already know what I've got to do. Because once she saw it down there, she thought, oh, guess what? She had one of these crunchy bar snacky things. But it was a healthy one, but it's still loaded with sugars. And your fructose is causing so much problem. Your normal sugar, that's going to cause so much problem because it unbalances your blood sugar. So you start with... just start your diet with a nice... We'll teach you how to do it. Okay, we are facing the world's worst population health crisis in a generation. Life expectancy is falling for the first time in decades and the quality of life is reduced. And that's also happening in Australia. I checked it up. But the health is in your hands. And it's up to you. What do you want to do? Do you want to choose it by using food or by, the alternative, medication and tablets and that? Now, before I finish, I just want to touch on the blue zones. Now, some of you may have heard of this, but in the world there are 5 places where they're called longevity hotspots. And there's a guy called Dan Buettner who wrote a book on it, and he said there are 5 places in the world where these people live longest. Okay, and these blue zones are in Sardinia in Italy, Icaria in Greece, Okinawa in Japan, Nicoya in Costa Rica, and Loma Linda in California. Now, the first 4 of those places are reasonably remote places. But Loma Linda, can I tell you, it's a city in America, in California, but it is known for a reputation. They have what you call a university hospital there, Loma Linda, and it teaches many, if you want to train to become a doctor or a nurse or whatever, there are so many. You want to be a dentist, you'd go to Loma Linda. If you want to be a physiotherapist, you'd go to Loma Linda. It's a natural health training school, a university in America. But the whole community is very health oriented. Did you know in Loma Linda, in this centre place where these people are, they live an average 10 years longer than everyone else in America. So this is definitely a blue zone that Dan Buettner found. Well, if you want to have the same diet as these people, these are the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, he also found that what happens is our epigenetics are a study of biological mechanisms that switch genes on and off. Our food, drink, activity, social connections, even how we think, all influence our epigenetics pathways. Now let's look at the modifiable factors that can help in the epigenetic pathways and see how long we can help ourselves and those we serve to live longer, happier and healthier lives. We can influence our age by what we eat, how much we eat, sense of purpose, friendship, activity, sleep, downtime, and cold water hormesis. Now, what is cold water hormesis? And I admit I had to look it up. This is when you use cold water to stimulate an activity on your body or hot water. So it's hydrotherapy, just what I told you about the hydrotherapy. It's using hot water to stimulate. You want to get rid of some different thing. You either use hot or cold on different parts of your body. Now, there is a science in it. You've got to know how to do. You know, if you want to get rid of a headache, where do you put hot or cold water on? Yes, you know. Okay, you want to bring life back to, if you want to bring life back to your body, what do? You plunge into a nice cold freezing bath. You got depression? Well, okay, what can we eat? Well, the blue zones eat more vegetables. They eat plant-based protein and not animal-based protein. They're doing exactly what I'm telling you. Now, this is something I wanted to share with you. Probably another 10 minutes, Bernice. 10 minutes. Okay. They looked at the survival of 460,000 people. They found that shifting just 3% of calorie intake from animal protein to plant protein corresponded with a 10% decrease in all mortality. In particular, replacing eggs and red meat with plant protein reduced death by 24% in men and 20% in women, especially with people who had a high intake of eggs and red meat. So these findings are quite new. Limiting intake of red and processed meats will improve your longevity. Now, that was a study in 2020. So studies go, it's quite early studies. Now, this is something that I thought, I want to share this before we finish. This here, Roy Walford, he went into a Biospheres 2 research. Now, this is where they shut themselves in this dome. They were in Arizona in America. And they went in 1991 and they came out in 1993. Now, we went in there and they could only have, they had to get their own food in there. He went in like looking on the left and look what he looked like on the right. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know if I'd like to look like that. But they said his biomarkers, his health markers and metabolic markers were improved when he looked like that on the right. So do we have to go in there and have a restriction of 1,700 calories a day? Well, there's an alternative, and that's called intermittent fasting. I don't know if anybody's heard about it. It's ideal. Peter, my husband and I, we have intermittent fasted for 30 plus years. And I tell you what, I believe it's one of the reasons that we are aging as well as we are. I mean, I'm getting older. I'm 76. Thank you. And Peter's 83, so we've got to count. We've got to remember, we just had a birthday 2 weeks ago. And so we've got to remember these things, but I believe that's one of the things, really do, because it gives your body a chance to detox. Too many people are just stuffing food in there. And even if it's good quality food, but you're putting too much too often. Okay, what happens to your body when you don't eat for 16 hours? Stabilises insulin, prevents diabetes, gives you more energy, you get more done. Lower triglycerides and prevents Alzheimer's, possibly cut medical bills, stops sugar cravings and hunger pangs. It's true, I don't eat it all between my meals. I don't get hungry, not at all. Boosts growth hormones, plays an important part in health, fitness, and slows the ageing process. I actually believe that because I know a number of people who do it. And those of you who have seen Barbara online would know she's like the epitome of it, you know. For somebody her age, she's just like I can't keep up to her when she walks. No way. She's so fast. Yeah, she's as old, you know. See, they're getting old, but guess what? They live in a place where there's a lot of hills, and she's also always up and down those hills. Reduces dangerous belly fat, reduces free radical damage, looks and feel younger, better brain health, sharper brain health, less disease. So it's not what we eat, but how much we eat and our meal timings. So there's a lot involved in it. Now, curry in Greece, where people forget to diet, well, you can have it by just following a diet like this. We have nuts, fruits, grains, seeds, lots of beans, legumes. So coming up next, these are the few classes, and what I'd like you to do, if you've given me your text, and if you're happy to, unless you want to, just let me return it and say, oh, I'm not interested. But I text out before each meeting is coming up what my subject is. And guess what? You will get that. You just reply to me and say, yes, I'm coming, no, I'm coming, so we know how many are coming. And then you can just come in and you can just sit in these classes. My next one is Tuesday, September the 10th at 10 a.m. And it's called Depression, the way out. We're dealing with depression. Too many people, and we've got to know this. This is a summary of depression recovery program by Dr. Neil Nedley from America, who has a live-in place you can go over if you've got somebody with depression. And guess what? He has, if somebody is living in, they have a 90 to 95% success rate. Now, have you ever heard that with depression? Why? Because when you live in, there's somebody there, you get up in the morning, you don't lie down there. You get up, do your exercise, get up, eat properly, get up, have your cold drink, your cold shower. Somebody's there telling you, you've got to do these things. When we have the community one, which is fine, because who can go to America and spend all that money and go to these places? When you have a community one, it works, but not as good, because people go home and they don't do it. They forget. They forget to have their cold shower. They forget to do these things they're supposed to do. But this is a summary of his program, and if you're interested in finding out for people you love, well, come along. Then on the next Sunday, October the 19th, now I am not 100% sure we're going to have this guy here, because we've got a man who is an agronomist. He's going to teach us how to do home gardening, what to get the best yield out of your garden. This is a Sunday. This is a Sunday. September Tuesday. You're right. It's September. My apologies. Thank you, Margaret. It's supposed to be the third Sunday in September. He's coming to do that. I got the wrong date. If he's not going to be here, I'm going to do water treatments. So, then we also have one on October 8th. The next October one is on emotional healing, how we can heal from emotional, because so many we've had a lot of trauma. Some people have had a lot of traumas in their life, that they're not necessarily depressed all the time, but they've just got a build-up of emotional trauma. And it teaches how God forgives, cleanses and heals. And that's excellent. People are really loving that one, because it's practical things that you can take home and you can do. Now, if you're interested, we're finished now. If you're interested in some of the last programs I've talked at, I've got an email, I've got a website, I've got Facebook and YouTube that have got these programs on. If you want to take a photo of that or get that, you're welcome to. So I've got quite a few because Ralph, my dear friend Ralph, has been such a backbone to put these up on YouTube. I am hopeless on YouTube, and he knows it, and he knows how to put things up, and you can see all the things there. All these, a lot of the past programs plus more. I haven't gone into near as much detail as what I'm. Okay, so that's our last slide there. So what we'll do in a short time, we'll just have you got you right for the meal right now.
Yeah, it's basically ready to serve. If you can explain that they've got 2 tables, just line up each end.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Okay.
And
Benisa, we just what we need also is some of the chairs taken up. Just check where you're going to sit. Some of the chairs, I think we have to pull the tables back a bit.
if they move their chairs to the side where they are, we've got to move some tables forward, then we'll put chairs around.
Okay. So I'll just close off the filming part of this and then we can just add a little bit more. Okay, well, thank you for coming. And
Toilet break and...
yes, yeah, a few minutes. You will have a few minutes break. Thank you, Ralph. Yeah. Okay, so what we'll also do is when you're ready, we need the chairs up